A year earlier, he walked into his own dealership believing he was investigating business problems. But what he discovered changed something much deeper. He realized success had nothing to do with profits. Nothing to do with expansion. Nothing to do with power. Real success was measured differently. In trust. In integrity. In the lives you improved while nobody was watching. One small act of compassion toward grieving parents had created ripples far beyond what he imagined. Employees found pride again. Customers found hope again. An entire industry was forced to question itself. And Tommy Morrison's legacy continued inspiring strangers who never even met him. Keanu smiled softly and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Then he walked back inside the dealership carrying a quiet truth in his heart. Kindness spreads. Honesty matters. And sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is simply choose to be decent. The work was never finished. The journey was never complete. But every step taken with compassion was a step worth taking. And for Keanu Reeves, that was enough. Keanu Reeves walked into his own dealership disguised as a broke customer, and what he heard next made his blood run cold. An elderly couple was begging a manager not to steal their dead son's car, but the truth Keanu was about to reveal would destroy an entire business forever. The California morning shimmered like molten gold across the endless rows of polished cars lined outside Reeves Automotive. Sunlight reflected from chrome bumpers and spotless windshields, creating a blinding sea of silver, black, pearl white, and midnight blue luxury vehicles stretching toward the edge of the property. Palm trees swayed lazily in the warm breeze while giant glass windows reflected the cloudless sky above Los Angeles. Inside the dealership, everything moved with smooth corporate precision. Salesmen in expensive tailored suits drifted between customers like actors performing rehearsed scenes. The smell of fresh coffee floated through the showroom while soft instrumental jazz played quietly from hidden speakers overhead. Contracts slid across desks. Handshakes were exchanged. Artificial smiles flashed constantly beneath the bright showroom lights. To everyone inside, it looked like another perfect Saturday. But hidden among the customers was a man nobody recognized. He walked slowly through the showroom wearing faded blue jeans, worn brown boots, and a wrinkled red and black flannel shirt that looked years old. A weathered baseball cap sat low over his eyes, hiding most of his face beneath the shadow of the brim. Long dark hair curled slightly around his neck, and rough stubble covered his jaw. He looked tired. Ordinary. Forgettable. Nobody greeted him excitedly. Nobody stared. Nobody asked for selfies. And that was exactly what he wanted. The man quietly studying every corner of the showroom was Keanu Reeves. Not the celebrity millions recognized around the world. Not the action hero from giant Hollywood blockbusters. Today, he was simply another customer. Or at least that's what everyone believed. 5 years earlier, after completing the final chapter of one of Hollywood's biggest film franchises, Keanu had shocked nearly everyone around him by investing his fortune into something completely unexpected. Car dealerships. Friends told him it was a terrible idea. Business advisors warned him the industry was ruthless. Publicists begged him to attach his name to something more glamorous. But Keanu ignored all of them. Because for him, the dealerships were never about money. Growing up, he had watched ordinary people get manipulated by businesses that viewed customers as walking wallets instead of human beings. Throughout his life, he heard endless stories about hidden fees, predatory financing, dishonest salesmen, and hard-working families pressured into terrible financial decisions. He hated it. And after spending decades surrounded by wealth and fame, Keanu wanted to build something different. Something honest. That was why he created Reeves Automotive. A dealership chain built around one simple promise. Treat people fairly. He even placed his own name on every building because he wanted customers to know that every transaction reflected his personal reputation. At first, the idea worked beautifully. Customers loved the transparency. Families returned again and again because they trusted the company. Online reviews exploded with praise. The business grew faster than anyone expected. But success came with a dangerous cost. Expansion. New locations opened across California. Managers were hired. Regional supervisors took over daily operations. And slowly, almost invisibly, Keanu became separated from the business he originally built. Film projects pulled him away. Charity commitments consumed his schedule. His motorcycle company demanded attention. Months passed between dealership visits. Then the complaints started. At first they were small. Customers mentioning aggressive financing, confusing paperwork, pressure tactics. Then came worse stories. Elderly customers being manipulated. Trade-in offers suspiciously low. Unexpected fees appearing at signing. People walking away feeling embarrassed, trapped, powerless. On paper, everything looked perfect. Sales numbers were excellent. Profits climbed higher every quarter. Managers assured him operations were smooth, but Keanu trusted instincts more than spreadsheets. And his instincts were screaming. That was why he came undercover. He wanted to see the truth himself. No celebrity treatment. No rehearsed corporate performance. Just reality. A young salesman spotted him near the used sedans section and approached immediately with a polished smile. "Morning, sir. Looking for something reliable today?" Keanu shrugged casually. "Maybe a used sedan. Nothing fancy." The salesman smiled wider. "Perfect. Follow me." Keanu walked beside him while pretending to focus on the sales pitch, but his attention remained fixed on everything else happening around him. Years of acting had sharpened his ability to read human behavior. He noticed every nervous glance, every uncomfortable expression, every forced smile. Near the finance office, a couple whispered anxiously while studying paperwork. At another desk, an elderly man rubbed his forehead in frustration while a salesman spoke rapidly beside him. Something felt wrong. Then he heard a woman crying. The sound sliced through the showroom noise instantly. Keanu turned slowly. Near the service desk stood an elderly couple holding onto each other tightly. The man was tall but slightly bent from age, his silver hair combed carefully back from a deeply weathered face. His hands looked rough and calloused, the hands of someone who had spent an entire lifetime working hard. Beside him stood his wife. Small. Fragile. Trembling. She clutched a crumpled tissue while tears streamed quietly down her cheeks. Outside the service bay sat an older Ford sedan. Clean. Well-maintained. Clearly loved. Across from them stood Marcus Bennett, regional sales manager. Keanu recognized him instantly from company reports. Marcus was famous within Reeves Automotive for producing massive profits. The kind of employee corporations usually celebrated, but the moment Keanu heard him speak, a cold heaviness settled inside his chest. "I'm sorry," Marcus said flatly. "That's the best offer." The elderly woman's voice cracked. "Please, there has to be something else you can do." Marcus sighed dramatically and checked his expensive watch. "That car isn't worth much anymore." Keanu slowly moved closer while pretending to examine a nearby SUV. The elderly man swallowed hard. "It belonged to our son." Marcus barely reacted. "Our son passed away last year," the woman whispered. Keanu felt his chest tighten immediately. Loss. He understood that pain intimately. Marcus folded his arms impatiently. "I understand this is emotional for you. But sentimental value doesn't increase market value." The woman's tears fell harder. "He drove that car every day to the fire station," she said softly. The elderly husband squeezed her hand. "He was a firefighter," he added quietly. Died saving people from an apartment fire. For the first time all morning, Keanu stopped breathing for a moment. But Marcus remained completely unmoved. The offer is $2,000, he said coldly. Take it or leave it. The woman looked devastated. The husband looked broken. And in that exact moment, something inside Keanu Reeves began to burn. Because he suddenly realized the company carrying his name had become exactly what he created it to fight against. And before this day ended, everything was about to change. The California morning shimmered like molten gold across the endless rows of polished cars lined outside Reeves Automotive. Sunlight reflected from chrome bumpers and spotless windshields, creating a blinding sea of silver, black, and pearl-white luxury. Inside the massive glass-walled showroom, the atmosphere carried the smooth rhythm of a machine built to sell. Salesmen in tailored suits moved from customer to customer with practiced smiles. Coffee machines hissed in the background. Shoes clicked against marble floors. Somewhere near the finance office, a printer spat out another contract. To everyone inside, it looked like another perfect Saturday. But hidden among the customers was a man nobody recognized. He walked slowly between the vehicles wearing faded blue jeans, worn work boots, and a wrinkled red and black flannel shirt. A weathered baseball cap sat low over his eyes, partially hiding his long dark hair. 3 days of rough stubble shadowed his jawline, making him look more like a tired mechanic than someone important. Nobody greeted him with excitement. Nobody stared. Nobody even looked twice. And that was exactly what he wanted. The man quietly studying the showroom floor was Keanu Reeves. Not the movie star. Not the celebrity millions recognized across the world. Today, he was simply another customer. Or at least that's what everyone believed. 5 years earlier, after finishing the final chapter of one of Hollywood's biggest action franchises, Keanu had made a decision that shocked almost everyone around him. While other celebrities invested in flashy tech startups, casinos, or luxury restaurants, Keanu had poured his fortune into something far less glamorous. Car dealerships. But for him, it was never about money. Growing up, Keanu had watched ordinary people get manipulated by businesses that saw customers as walking wallets instead of human beings. Over the years, he had heard endless stories of dishonest salesmen, hidden fees, predatory financing, and families pressured into terrible financial decisions. So he created Reeves Automotive. A dealership built around one simple promise: honesty. He even put his own name on the buildings because he wanted customers to know that every transaction reflected his reputation personally. At first, the idea worked beautifully. Customers loved the transparency. Reviews exploded online. Families returned again and again because they trusted the company. But success came quickly. Too quickly. New locations opened across California. Managers were hired. Regional supervisors took over daily operations. Keanu became increasingly distracted by film projects, charity work, and his motorcycle company. And slowly, quietly, things began to change. Over the last year, troubling stories had started reaching him. Customers complaining about pressure tactics. Elderly people confused by hidden charges. Trade-in offers suspiciously lower than market value. Aggressive financing deals that felt more like traps than opportunities. On paper, everything looked flawless. Reports showed excellent profits and high sales numbers. Managers insisted operations were smooth. But Keanu trusted instincts more than spreadsheets. And his instincts were screaming. That was why he came undercover. He wanted to see the truth with his own eyes. A young salesman spotted him near the used sedan section and approached immediately with a polished smile. "Good morning, sir. Looking for something reliable today?" Keanu shrugged casually, keeping his voice calm and ordinary. "Maybe a used sedan. Nothing fancy, just dependable." The salesman nodded eagerly. "Perfect. We've got some excellent options in the back lot. Keanu followed him while pretending to listen carefully to the sales pitch. But his attention remained fixed on the people around him instead. Years in Hollywood had taught him how to read human behavior. He noticed everything. The nervous expressions on customers' faces during negotiations. The uneasy glances employees exchanged near the finance office. The tension hiding beneath fake smiles. Something felt wrong. Then he heard a woman crying. The sound cut through the noise of the showroom like shattered glass. Keanu slowly turned his head. Near the service desk stood an elderly couple holding each other tightly. The man was tall but worn down by age, his shoulders slightly bent from decades of hard labor. His silver hair was neatly combed back, though exhaustion lined every inch of his face. Beside him stood his wife, clutching a tissue in trembling hands as tears rolled quietly down her cheeks. Outside the service bay sat an older Ford sedan. Clean. Well-maintained. Clearly loved. Across from them stood Marcus Bennett, the dealership's regional sales manager. Keanu recognized him immediately from company reports. Marcus was known for one thing. Results. Massive profits. Record-breaking sales numbers. The kind of employee corporations usually celebrated. But the moment Keanu heard him speak, a cold heaviness settled in his chest. "I'm sorry," Marcus said flatly, barely pretending to care. "That's the best offer you're going to get." The elderly woman's voice cracked. "Please, there has to be something else you can do." Marcus sighed dramatically and checked his expensive watch. "That car isn't worth much anymore. You're lucky I'm even offering this." Keanu slowly moved closer, pretending to examine a nearby SUV while listening. The elderly man swallowed hard. "It belonged to our son," he said quietly. Marcus barely reacted. "Our son passed away last year," the woman whispered. Keanu felt something tighten painfully inside him. Loss. He knew that pain better than most people alive. Marcus leaned against the desk impatiently. "Look. I understand this is emotional for you. But sentimental value doesn't increase market value." The woman's tears fell harder. "He drove that car every day to the fire station," she said. "He loved it." The elderly husband squeezed her hand tightly. "He was a firefighter," he added softly. "Died saving a family from an apartment fire." For the first time all morning, Keanu stopped breathing for a moment. But Marcus remained completely unmoved. "The offer is $2,000, he said coldly. "Take it or leave it." Silence spread across the showroom. The woman looked devastated. The husband looked broken. And something inside Keanu Reeves began to burn. Because in that moment, he realized the company carrying his name had become exactly what he created it to fight against. And he was about to do something nobody in that building would ever forget. Keanu stepped forward slowly, his boots echoing across the polished floor. "Excuse me," he said calmly. Marcus turned immediately, irritation flashing across his face. "Sir, this is a private conversation." Keanu ignored the hostility and looked toward the elderly couple instead. "I couldn't help overhearing," he said gently. "That sedan outside caught my attention." The couple looked confused. Marcus folded his arms. "The vehicle is being traded in." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "What was the offer?" Marcus hesitated. $2,000. Keanu slowly repeated the number. $2,000, for that car? Even pretending to be an ordinary customer, he could barely hide his disbelief. The sedan outside was older, yes, but extremely well maintained. Any honest appraisal would place it far above Marcus's insulting offer. Marcus's jaw tightened. "It has high mileage." Keanu looked directly at the elderly couple. "I'll give you $5,000 cash for it." The showroom froze. Every nearby employee turned toward them. The elderly woman gasped softly. "Oh no," she whispered. "We couldn't possibly accept that." Keanu smiled warmly. "You can. And you should." Marcus stepped closer, anger building visibly. "You can't interfere with dealership business." Keanu's eyes met his. "We'll discuss that later." Something in his voice made Marcus pause. Not fear exactly, but discomfort. Authority. The kind that didn't need to shout. Outside, away from the tension of the showroom, the elderly couple introduced themselves. Walt and Dorothy Morrison. Married 54 years. High school sweethearts. Parents of 3 children. And survivors of unimaginable heartbreak. Their youngest son, Tommy Morrison, had dreamed of becoming a firefighter since childhood. He used to sleep wearing a toy fire helmet, Dorothy said through tears. Walt smiled faintly. Kid never wanted to be anything else. Keanu listened quietly. The pain in their voices felt painfully real. Tommy joined the Los Angeles Fire Department at 22, Walt continued. Best day of our lives. Then his expression darkened. Last year, there was an apartment fire in East LA. Dorothy's hands trembled. There were children trapped upstairs. Walt stared at the ground. Tommy went back inside after everyone else came out. The silence that followed felt crushing. He saved all 5 of them, Walt whispered. Keanu closed his eyes briefly. But the floor collapsed before he could escape. Dorothy finally broke down completely. Keanu stood there motionless, feeling grief press against his chest like a physical weight. He understood this kind of pain. Loss never truly disappeared. It simply became part of you. Dorothy gently touched the hood of the sedan. He bought this car himself after graduating from the academy. Worked extra shifts for months to pay for it. Walt nodded. After he died, we couldn't bear selling it. Keanu reached slowly into his wallet. Without hesitation, he counted out 50 $100 bills. $5,000. Cash. Walt stared at the money in disbelief. Sir, this is too much. No, Keanu said quietly. It isn't enough. Dorothy looked at him with tears in her eyes. Why are you doing this? Keanu glanced toward Tommy's car. Because your son deserves respect, he said softly. Not exploitation. The words shattered something inside Dorothy. She covered her mouth as sobs overtook her. Walt's eyes filled with tears too, though he fought desperately to remain composed. You know, Walt said after a long silence, Tommy would have liked you. Keanu looked away briefly. Those words hit harder than he expected. Before anyone could continue, the dealership doors burst open behind them. Marcus stormed outside furious. What the hell is going on? The warmth disappeared from the moment instantly. Keanu handed the cash firmly to Walt. Take your wife home, he said calmly. Keep Tommy's car safe. Marcus stepped forward aggressively. You just cost this dealership thousands of dollars. Keanu turned slowly. For the first time all day, his expression hardened completely. No, he replied quietly. You did. Marcus Bennett's face burned with anger as customers and employees quietly gathered near the entrance to watch the confrontation unfolding outside. He pointed aggressively toward Keanu, his expensive watch glinting in the California sunlight. You think you can walk in here dressed like some drifter and interfere with my dealership? Marcus snapped. Keanu stood perfectly still. Then slowly, he removed the worn baseball cap from his head. Long dark hair fell across his shoulders. The expression on Marcus's face changed instantly. Confusion. Recognition. Fear. Keanu reached into his wallet and held up a business card. The Reeves Automotive logo gleamed beneath his name. I own this dealership, Keanu said quietly. The words hit like thunder. Employees froze. Customers stared. Marcus went pale. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. Keanu stepped closer, his calm voice now carrying undeniable authority. I built this company because I believed people deserved honesty. I wanted families to walk into these dealerships without fear of being manipulated. Marcus tried desperately to recover. Mr. Reeves, I didn't realize. That's the problem, Keanu interrupted. You thought these people were powerless. He pointed toward Walt and Dorothy. You saw grieving parents and viewed them as profit. Marcus swallowed hard. It's business. Keanu's eyes darkened. No. It's greed. The silence surrounding them became unbearable. Then a young salesman named Jake Sullivan finally stepped forward. What he's saying is true, Jake admitted nervously. Marcus pressures us to lowball customers all the time. Marcus spun around furiously. Shut your mouth, but another employee spoke. Then another. Suddenly the truth began pouring out from every direction. Hidden fees. Manipulated financing. Pressure tactics. Elderly customers targeted because they were easier to confuse. Keanu listened in stunned silence. The company carrying his name had become poisoned from the inside. And standing there in the parking lot, he realized something painful. This wasn't just Marcus's failure. It was his. Because somewhere along the way, he had stopped paying attention. Marcus looked around desperately as his entire system collapsed around him. I was increasing profits, he shouted. That's what successful dealerships do. Keanu stared at him coldly. Then maybe the industry needs to change. Marcus's voice cracked. Please, give me another chance. Keanu looked at him for a long moment. Then finally spoke. You're fired. The words landed with brutal finality. Marcus's face drained completely. Security escorted him toward the building while stunned employees watched silently. Keanu turned back toward his staff. Starting today, he announced, things change. And deep down, every single person standing there knew they were witnessing the beginning of something much bigger than a car dealership. That afternoon, Keanu transformed the dealership conference room into a temporary command center. Boxes of customer files covered the tables. Employees moved in and out carrying paperwork while tension filled the air. For hours, Keanu sat listening to story after story from customers who had been manipulated under Marcus's leadership. A single mother pressured into impossible financing. An elderly veteran cheated during a trade-in. Young couples trapped into paying thousands in hidden warranties. Each story made Keanu feel heavier. Ashamed. Angry. Determined. Jake sat beside him reviewing contracts. Sir, this goes deeper than we thought. Keanu nodded silently. The numbers were horrifying. Thousands of dollars stolen through deception. Families buried under unnecessary debt. Trust destroyed. Most corporations would have buried the evidence. Protected profits. Protected reputations. But Keanu made a different decision. We're refunding everyone. The room went silent. Frank Henderson stared at him. That could cost hundreds of thousands. Keanu looked around the room. Then that's the price of integrity. And so the calls began. Keanu personally contacted customers late into the night. Many thought it was a prank at first. You're telling me Keanu Reeves is calling about my car payment? One woman asked in disbelief. Yes, ma'am, he replied gently. And I'm calling to apologize. Some customers cried. Others were angry. Some simply sat in stunned silence because nobody had ever admitted wrongdoing to them before. By midnight, Keanu's voice had become rough from exhaustion. But he kept going. Because for the first time in years, he finally felt like he was doing what Reeves Automotive was always meant to do. The next morning, something incredible happened. Customers lined up outside the dealership before sunrise. Not because of discounts. Not because of flashy promotions. Because people had heard the story. Word spread across social media like wildfire. The movie star owner who fired his own manager for cheating customers. The dealership issuing refunds instead of excuses. The businessman choosing honesty over profit. People wanted to see if it was real. And when they walked through the doors, they found something different. Employees smiling genuinely. Transparent pricing. No pressure. No manipulation. Just honesty. For the first time in years, the dealership finally felt human again. Not everyone was happy about Reeves Automotive's transformation. Across Southern California, another dealership owner watched the growing headlines with growing anger. Victor Ashford. Owner of Ashford Premium Motors. A man who built his empire through ruthless tactics and psychological manipulation. To Victor, customers were prey. Nothing more. When he first heard about Keanu's refund campaign, he laughed. A celebrity playing businessman, he mocked. But the laughter disappeared quickly. Because customers started leaving Ashford Premium Motors. They wanted honesty now. Transparency. Respect. Things Victor considered weaknesses. One evening, Keanu received a phone call. Victor Ashford speaking, came the cold voice. Keanu leaned back in his chair. What do you want? Victor chuckled softly. I want to warn you. Keanu remained silent. This honesty campaign of yours. Victor continued. It's cute. Inspirational. But this industry doesn't reward good people. Keanu's expression hardened. Maybe that's the problem. Victor's voice grew colder. You're destabilizing the market. No, Keanu replied calmly. I'm exposing it. The silence between them became razor sharp. Finally Victor spoke again. I'm coming for your customers. Then the line went dead. 3 days later, the attack began. Ashford Premium Motors launched massive advertisements offering unbelievably low prices. Customers flooded toward Victor's dealerships. Within days, Reeves Automotive sales dropped nearly 40%. Employees became nervous. Maybe we need to lower prices too, Frank suggested carefully. But Keanu shook his head. No. We tell people the truth. Instead of starting a price war, Keanu launched an educational campaign explaining hidden dealership tactics. He taught customers how financing scams worked. How hidden fees were buried inside contracts. How predatory dealerships manipulated buyers. And suddenly, people started reading their paperwork carefully. That's when Victor's empire began collapsing. Customers realized that cheap deals were traps. Hidden charges. Inflated interest rates. Thousands added quietly after signing. Anger exploded online, and the man who believed greed always won suddenly found himself losing control. One rainy afternoon, a young man walked quietly into Reeves Automotive carrying a thick manila folder. His name was Derek Williams. Former salesman at Ashford Premium Motors. His hands trembled slightly as he sat across from Keanu. I quit this morning, Derek admitted. Keanu studied him carefully. Why? Derek exhaled shakily. Because I couldn't live with myself anymore. Then he opened the folder. Inside were internal memos, commission structures, training documents, and fraudulent financing records. Evidence. Overwhelming evidence. They trained us to target vulnerable people, Derek confessed. Elderly customers. Single parents. Anyone who looked confused. Keanu's stomach tightened. Derek continued. They taught us how to manipulate emotions. How to bury hidden fees. How to increase interest rates without customers noticing. The deeper Keanu looked into the documents, the darker the truth became. This wasn't isolated corruption. It was a system, an entire business model built around exploitation. "You could destroy him with this," Jake whispered. Keanu looked down at the folder silently. Maybe he could. But revenge wasn't the goal. Justice was. Instead of leaking the evidence publicly, Keanu contacted California authorities. Investigators moved quickly. Auditors descended onto Ashford Premium Motors. Former employees started cooperating. Customers filed complaints by the hundreds. Victor Ashford fought desperately to save himself. He blamed managers. Blamed paperwork. Blamed misunderstandings. But the evidence was undeniable. 1 month later, Victor stood before cameras announcing the immediate closure of his dealership empire. His face looked exhausted. Defeated. And while reporters shouted questions at him, Keanu watched silently from his office television. Jake smiled slightly. "We won." But Keanu shook his head. "No," he said quietly. "We protected people." And to him, that mattered far more. 1 year later, Reeves Automotive had transformed completely. Customer satisfaction ratings became the highest in California. Employees no longer feared losing their jobs for being honest. Families trusted the company again. And dealerships across the state slowly began copying Keanu's model. Then one quiet Saturday morning, Walt and Dorothy Morrison returned. Beside them sat Tommy's restored Ford sedan. It gleamed beneath the showroom lights like a memory brought back to life. Keanu approached slowly. "You restored it," he whispered. Dorothy smiled through tears. "After what you did for us, we wanted to finish what Tommy started." Walt handed Keanu a framed photograph. Tommy stood proudly beside the car wearing his firefighter uniform. Young. Fearless. Alive. "We want you to donate the car to the Los Angeles Fire Academy," Walt said. Keanu looked stunned. "You're sure?" Dorothy nodded. Tommy believed things should help people. This car shouldn't sit hidden in a garage forever. Keanu felt emotion rise inside him. The same car Marcus Bennett once tried to steal from grieving parents for profit, would now help train future firefighters. A symbol of sacrifice transformed into hope. That afternoon, Keanu gathered his entire staff around Tommy's car. He told them the story. Every detail. The fire. The sacrifice. The parents. The kindness. Many employees wiped tears from their eyes. Frank Henderson stepped forward emotionally. "I've worked in this industry 37 years, he admitted. And this is the first time I've ever felt proud to sell cars." The room fell silent. Because everyone understood something important in that moment. They weren't just working at a dealership anymore. They were part of something meaningful. As sunset painted the California sky in deep orange and gold, Keanu stood alone outside Reeves Automotive. Customers moved through the showroom behind the glass walls laughing, smiling, shaking hands with employees who genuinely cared about them. The atmosphere felt different now. Lighter. Warmer. Human. Keanu pulled out his phone and looked at a message from Walt Morrison. Attached was a photograph. Young firefighter cadets stood beside Tommy's restored car outside the academy training grounds. The message beneath the photo was simple. "Thank you for proving kindness still matters." Keanu stared at the picture quietly.